Great piece, great piece. I noticed like when you're coming into your consciousness, they put a lot of defiant people around you. You know, like when you're starting to learn about, the civil rights era, they always show you the defiant people. You know what I mean? And black people can't understand like why Africans, the total, right? They don't understand why Africans don't like being around Americans. They don't understand this because they see like in their country, right? And you notice a lot of Africans, they have a problem with Julius Malema. You know what I mean? They notice that it's no need to be defiant. All you have to do is work together and you'll achieve what you want. No one's forcing you to do something you don't want. It's a matter of choice and option. No one's saying you can't do this or you can't do that. No one's saying that, right? But you notice, like, because I experienced this when I was growing up, it always used to be when I was 14, when I was coming into my consciousness, I would always listen to Malcolm X tapes. And it was kind of like a procedure I took in order to stay away from the criminal element in a community. Like if they see me wearing a Malcolm X shirt, maybe they'll stop bothering me, or maybe they won't bother me. Because like I didn't know the importance of colorism, right? Like I didn't know that, Marcus Garvey was as much important as Malcolm X, like I wouldn't look at Marcus Garvey tapes because it didn't appeal to me. You know what I mean? Like who is this guy with this funny accent? You know what I mean? Like you could understand Malcolm X, but at the same time, it was like I should have been listening to Marcus Garvey. You know what I mean? Because like he's telling people organize. Malcolm is saying shoot a person if they hit you. You know what I'm saying? Like he on that tip. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you get between the mix of settling in nature and letting nature handle its business and letting things come as they come? A lot of us don't do that. You know what I mean? We want to be the first person to throw the bottle in the crowd. You know what I mean? Like, that's how people get hurt, and that's how you create karma for yourself. And you create karma for others when you do that. And people don't believe in karma for some reason, They don't believe in karma until it comes at their doorstep. This is why I let the past be the past, I don't worry about who got over me in the past. I don't worry about that, Because once you start to get those downloads from the universe and you figure out like, okay, today is going to be a different day, that's the next thing you want to think about come that other day. You're going to think about the day where you started to figure things out. You're not going to think about something that happened in 2005, 2004. You're not going to think about that. You know what I mean? So militancy, it needs to be directed, doing the black beret, the green beret, the red beret. Don't do it for show. You need to know what those colors mean. And you need to, instead of picking up arms and going for combatants, you need to participate in that ceremony, that color guard. That's how you solidify your legacy. You know what I mean? You see like how Uganda, Sudan, when they do their ceremonies, right? Everybody come out. Their men, their women are marching in brigades, letting the people know we're going to defend you. We're going to defend this land. You see what I mean? Like black men, when they get out the military, they don't think like, I need to join an arsenal. You know what I mean? The military arsenal. Like, you have that right. You don't have to join the police force. You could join an arsenal. They don't think, oh man, I can join this organization over here that's supplying aid to war-torn countries. You can do that by making blog posts and donating. Any type of help, any type of aid. Like if you can donate $100 every month to one cause, $500 every month to one cause, think of how much help you're giving. You notice a lot of these organizations, right, including the Black Panther chapter, the Black Panther Party, they're not necessarily thinking about going out and dealing harm to people they don't like. They're not thinking about that. Because when you really think about it, right, you don't really have an enemy as far as combatants in a human. You really don't, you know. At most, you have a problem with, like, say, for instance, the black community. It's the black man versus the black man. It's the black man versus the brown man. It's the black man versus, you know, whoever, right, who's coming with problems, you know. It's usually the base that's its own problem. It's usually a black man that's his own problem. And it's the same thing for white men who run their communities. It's usually the white man who is the white man's problem. You see it all the time in road rage incidents. You know, they're getting in shootouts with the cops because they believe they have superiority on the road as far as license, you know. Like, you see what I mean? So it's white on brown, it's brown on white crime, you know what I mean? Like, it's that thing, you know. So when you start to really detach from the harms that come in associating with other people, you start to see who's guiding others to the right light, and you start to see that others who are guiding themselves to a light, they necessarily don't have a backing that's going to support them if they do get in a cause where an incident happened, you know. Most of these problems we see in, you know, communities, they don't happen close quarter, you know. It usually happens when a person is on their way to work, when a person is leaving work. You know what I mean? Like, your enemy is not going to be your neighbor, you know, a lot of the times, right? And if that is the case, then, you know, in those situations, you know, there's many ways of getting around that, you know. One particularly, right, you know, it's, you know, getting your city involved, you know. If you have to call the deputy clerk in your particular district or your business liaison and say, you know what, I'm not feeling the crowds that are starting to move into our community, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to hold a exhibit, you know, or a block party, or I want to hold an exhibit and, you know, on ethics, right? Or business entrepreneurship. You see it all the time. They do it. And you say, well, come here and I'll meet you here, right? We can meet at Starbucks, you know. Like, I used to do that, and you'll meet one of the business partners who work for the city at a coffee shop, or you'll meet a state representative or something like that, you know, even a city council member, right? You meet them at like a donut shop or something like that. Like, I've done that, right? And everybody shows up, and you start to know, oh, here go Miss Dorothy. Oh, here go Mr. Leroy. Oh, here go, you know, Miss Alfreda. You know, oh, here goes, you know, Mr. Tom. That type of thing. And when you start to see your community is out there to support, you know, you like, do you know this particular person, or do you know this particular person? I'm having problems with them, right? They keep littering on my property, or they keep blasting loud music at night or something like that, right? That's the perfect time for you to network about what's happening in your particular area or your particular community, things start to get done after that, you know, because now they see your face. Now they can trust, okay, this person has a good persona, you know, um, and everything goes over well, you know what I mean? It happens. So that's particularly how that happens, you know what I mean? So you have to communicate and you have to be genuine, you know, you have to be genuine, you know. People know when people are genuine, and people know when people are not uprooted, you know what I mean? That they're not uprooted, they're not ready to move, you know. If you're a person that's not uprooted, you know, you're not going to talk about stuff like that, you know. You're going to be talking about what football player is in a scandal, you know what I mean? That's the type of stuff them people talk about, you know. Other people who are responsible, they talk about, you know, what tractor they're going to get, you know what I mean? Like what, you know, what vehicle they're going to get to pull a motor brigade, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing, you know. They on that, you know. Other people just not on that time, you know. So great peace, Yakoki.